All right, let's get right into it. Today's deep dive. I'm so ready to dig into these sources on leprechauns. I mean, who doesn't love those little guys? You know, the whole pot of gold at the end of the rainbow thing.
Yeah.
But the stuff you sent over suggests there might be a darker side to these creatures.
Yeah, it is intriguing, isn't it? You know, one thing that really struck me is how different leprechauns are today compared to, like, their historical roots. Like that image we have in our heads, little guy in a green suit.
Yeah?
That's actually pretty recent. Like, if you go back, they were often depicted in red.
Really? Red? That's not the leprechaun I know.
Right. It's a bit of a mystery why the change happened. But that shift, you know, from red to green, it really shows how our culture has kind of reinterpreted these guys over time. But going way back, the sources really highlight their connection to ancient Irish mythology. Some even link them to, get this, the god Luke.
Wait, Luke, the warrior god.
Yep, the one and only.
That's a pretty big jump, like from warrior god to, what, shoemaker for the fairies?
It is, isn't it? Some sources suggest they might have been demoted, like tasked with crafting shoes for the fairy folk. Fascinating how their role has changed over the centuries.
Yeah.
And of course, there's that whole trickster reputation.
Oh yeah, for sure. The sources definitely play up their playful but kind of mischievous side. But there are hints of something more, you know, like something potentially dangerous.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one thing that comes up again and again is this deep-seated fear of humans in leprechauns. A real tendency towards solitude. And this, like, intense desire to avoid capture at all costs. It really suggests there's more to them than just silly pranks.
Yeah, that fear is a bit creepy, right? Makes you wonder what they're so scared of.
Exactly. And that fear, it's a recurring theme in all the witness accounts in these sources.
Oh yeah, I noticed those.
Yeah.
Some pretty chilling first-hand stories in there.
Yeah.
These aren't just like, you know, whimsical tales. These are accounts from people who claim to have actually encountered leprechauns.
And the consistency across these accounts is striking. I mean, you have multiple people from totally different backgrounds, different locations, describing similar experiences, encounters in remote areas, often wooded. And the leprechauns are always terrified, always desperate to escape.
Yeah. It's almost like they're being hunted or something. And several people even mentioned weird environmental things happening during the encounters, almost like the forest itself is helping the leprechaun get away.
That's a detail that pops up a lot. People describe the feeling of being watched. Trees swaying, branches moving, and there's no wind. It's like nature itself is acting as a protector to these creatures.
Eerie, but also kind of fascinating. Suggests a connection to nature that, you know, we can only dream of. But one account that really stuck with me, it's the incident in Blackthorn Woods.
Yes. The story of Cillian Walsh, the farmer who allegedly injured a leprechaun.
Yeah, disturbing story. He supposedly managed to sever one of the creature's hands. And what's even weirder, the whole town supposedly saw this hand as proof, like it was real.
And then, according to the source, government officials show up, confiscate the hand, and silence the entire town. Claim it was all a hoax.
A government cover-up. Okay, that just adds a whole new level of intrigue to this whole thing. What do you make of that?
Well, government cover-ups are a pretty common theme in, you know, folklore, especially when it comes to mysterious creatures. But the fact that it's mentioned here, alongside all those witness accounts, it does raise some eyebrows for sure.
Yeah. Like, what are they hiding? Why go to such lengths to suppress information about, well, you know, a creature that's traditionally seen as harmless as a leprechaun? That's wild, right?
Right.
Like a government cover-up to protect leprechauns. What if they really are more than just, you know, those cute little guys from the Lucky Charms commercials?
Right. It makes you think. When you consider all those witness accounts, too, like you said, the fear, that weird connection to nature, it does make you question that whole, you know, harmless prankster image.
Totally. Like, maybe they aren't just magical, but a whole different species trying to, like, stay hidden, survive.
Well, there are actually a bunch of researchers in the sources who say exactly that. They say, well, think about the descriptions. Small, bipedal, smart, seemingly able to, like, mess with their environment. It could all point to a totally unique biological entity, possibly super ancient.
So not magical beings, but like an undiscovered species.
Yeah.
With their own like evolutionary history.
Yeah.
And that whole connection to nature. So many witnesses say the environment like reacts to protect them. Like it's a symbiotic relationship or something.
Exactly. And some researchers even suggest they have this deep understanding of the natural world that we've completely lost touch with. Maybe they can even tap into forces we don't understand.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's a lot. But okay, let's say they are a separate species. Why so much secrecy? Like, why haven't they been officially documented?
Well, that's where those government cover-up theories come in. Some of the sources speculate that the authorities know about them, but they're actively trying to keep it hush-hush.
Maybe to avoid mass panic. Or, like, to study them secretly.
Right. Imagine the government finds out about a whole new intelligent species. And one with maybe supernatural powers on top of that. I could see how they might think, oh man, this is a threat. We got to control the narrative here.
But wouldn't scientists want to, study them in the open? Think of the breakthroughs. Biology, evolution, heck, even magic.
A couple of sources point out exactly that dilemma, the clash between scientific curiosity and, well, ethics. If leprechauns are their own species, we got to think about how studying them, interacting with them, might affect their whole way of life. Like, are we helping or hurting?
Right. Good point. Are we even ready to deal with another intelligent species, especially one that clearly wants nothing to do with us?
It's a classic question, isn't it? Like in all those sci-fi stories, the whole encounter with the other thing and what we choose to do in those situations says a lot about us.
Okay, so let's say, just for fun, that there is a cover-up. Why go through all that trouble? Wouldn't it be easier to just, brush it off as folklore, conspiracy theories?
One source brings up a good point. Maybe there are just too many witness accounts, too consistent, too hard to ignore. So maybe a more hands-on approach was, necessary.
So instead of debunking, they're actively hiding the truth, making sure it doesn't get out.
It's been done before, throughout history, whenever info is deemed, dangerous or whatever. And hey, don't forget, controlling information, way easier these days with the whole internet thing.
True. Fake news spreads like wildfire.
Yeah.
Manipulating what people believe. It's probably easier than we think.
Right.
But even if there is a cover-up, why are leprechauns so afraid of us? We still haven't answered that.
Right. That's where we get into the speculation zone based on, the folklore, the witness accounts, all that. Some sources say maybe they're like guardians of ancient knowledge of the natural world, and maybe they see us humans as a threat to that, like to the balance of things.
So they're not hiding. They're protecting their world from us. That's kind of a scary thought.
It makes you think about our impact, doesn't it? Maybe they have a view of how nature works, how it's all connected, that we've totally lost.
Man, this is heavy. We've gone from shoemakers to, like, guardians of a secret world. But there's one thing we haven't talked about, like the whole pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Where does that fit into all this?
Yeah, the pot of gold. It's so classic, right?
Yeah.
But it is kind of weird when you think about everything else we've been talking about.
Yeah. It's interesting, though, how much that image, the pot of gold, has stuck with us. And like a lot of folklore, there's probably something deeper going on there. A lot of the sources say we should think of the pot of gold, well, symbolically.
So not just like actual treasure.
Right. I mean, gold has always symbolized wealth, power, but it can also mean like immortality or enlightenment. So maybe in this case, it stands for something way more valuable than just, money.
Well, some sources say it could be ancient knowledge, hidden wisdom, maybe even like the secrets of nature itself. If leprechauns are these guardians protecting the natural world, maybe the pot of gold is what they're protecting.
So not greedy, just protective. They don't want us messing things up.
It fits right with that whole fear and distrust of humans thing. It's not about the gold, it's about what it represents.
Okay, what about the rainbow then? Is that symbolic too?
Rainbows are big in mythology. They can be like bridges between worlds, a promise, a sign from, something bigger. Maybe with leprechauns, it's about how hard it is to reach their world, to get that knowledge, that power.
Like a test.
Yeah, exactly. If you're just focused on the gold, on the reward, you miss the point, right? The real treasure.
Man, it's deep when you think about it. We've gone from a kid's story to like the meaning of life.
That's the cool thing about folklore, though, right? It starts simple, but it makes you ask the big questions. It makes you use your imagination.
So what should our listeners, what should they take away from all this leprechaun stuff?
I'd say be curious. Don't just take things at face value. Dig deeper. The world's full of amazing things, seen and unseen.
I like that. So next time you see a rainbow, don't just think about the pot of gold. Think about the bigger picture, the mysteries. And hey, who knows, maybe there's more to the story than we think.
The best treasures are the ones we least expect, right?